de altar7.com. Estamos aquí con una entrevista más para todos ustedes y esta entrevista tiene que ver con algo muy, pero muy emocionante, que es una nueva película que se llama Jesus Revolution. Y tenemos aquí a Jonathan Roumie con nosotros, que interpreta a Lonnie. Entonces vamos a darle la bienvenida. How are you, Jonathan?
Hola, thank you for having me.
How's your Spanish doing?
Ah, not too mal. No muy mal.
I wanted to congratulate you, first of all, because many people know you in the series, obviously, The Chosen, but now you are making a character that it's one of the key important things in this story. So, what made you, or what was the key point that made you decide to be part of this great story?
I think it was the script. It was such a beautifully written script about these people whose lives intersected at this pivotal moment in history, and it just made it irresistible to want to be a part of it.
It was such a powerful thing back
Mm.
in the 60s and beginning of the 70s. It was definitely a revolution. Some people say that your character Lonnie, for some people he was a little bit controversial. For
Sure.
other people, was this man who actually understood a generation that was really confused, was looking for something.
Yeah.
What did you learn? A life lesson probably that you learned from Lonnie.
Well, he was a very wounded man from the time he was 3 years old. He suffered terrible, terrible abuse as a kid, as a child, in through his young adulthood, physical, sexual abuse. So, by his own words in his autobiography, I mean, he had a lot of confusion about authority figures. He didn't do well with authority figures. And so he had a lot of wounds, but what was very clear was his love for Christ, was his love for God, was his charisma for the Holy Spirit, and God gave him these gifts of the Spirit that allowed him to do these to perform miracles. Really, he could actually heal people. He could call down the Spirit um, when the Spirit was willing, and he cured blindness. He cured diseases. Like I talked very intimately with a number of people who knew him very, very well, especially around the time that our movie takes place, which was early in his ministry. And they said it was like walking with an apostle. Um, but he was a flawed human being, as we are all flawed human beings. And later on in life, his life took many turns and twists, and um, you know, ultimately he went away from the church, but he found himself back again and reconciled to the church towards the end of his life. And for me, the focus was on this moment in history, this point in time, which I said was a pivotal moment in history, and the things that came out of his meeting Pastor Chuck Smith were, I mean, nothing short of the obvious and powerful presence of God in society. And I think that was, the story itself wasn't anything I had ever heard of before. I grew up Catholic, so I was unfamiliar with Lonnie Frisbee and Chuck Smith, and um, I was familiar with the Time magazine cover. I remember seeing that as a kid, but I didn't know anything about Lonnie. So it was a beautiful history lesson of sorts. It was a beautiful church history lesson, um, to be able to understand how impactful this movement was at that time and continues to be today.
Into that. And one thing that you want to share with our viewers, any word that maybe there's a generation that is looking for something, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
What message would you give to probably maybe a person that is looking for that something and and he can find something?
Yeah, yeah. Every generation has its search and its quest for fulfillment and meaning and purpose, and usually those things start with everything else but God. For some people, they find God early in life. Other people, they find other things that are a substitute for God. For some people it's money, some people it's power, authority, or sex, or notoriety or celebrity. Um, and so I think for those people that are searching for meaning and purpose, uh, if I could give them any kind of advice to shortcut a lot of suffering and trials in that search, it would be to start with God, because everything else flows around that, as God being the center of your life orchestrates the rest of your life in a way that wouldn't ordinarily happen if you didn't have him in your life. When he's at the center, everything else makes sense. Everything else falls into place, and the trials and sufferings that we go through as humans um, are easier to shoulder and to bear, with God there to turn to, as opposed to not having anyone or anything to turn to. Uh, and when I say anyone, I'm meaning God, not people. I mean, you know, people can't solve people's innate search for meaning. They can provide help and clues, but at the end, it has to be God that fulfills a person's life. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much for those words. Jonathan, I want you to invite everybody to see this movie. And well, I know Latin America is going to be waiting for this movie too. So I don't know if you want to say something, a little bit of Spanish or no, that's fine.
I don't know how much Spanish that I could comfortably say to communicate properly. I think they would be
Dios te
very
bendiga.
confused.
Now we're going to
uh,
teach you. Dios te bendiga. God bless you.
Thank you. And
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Don't forget,
bless you.
amigos y amigas, en Estados Unidos va a ser febrero 24, va a ser el estreno de esta película. Gracias a todos ustedes por haber estado con nosotros. Y no se olviden, más adelante en Latinoamérica estarán también todas estas películas y esta hermosa película. Jesus Revolution para todos ustedes. Gracias a todos. Esto fue altar7.com, tu vida, tu música.
Cuánto